this index I, and it means that it's all configuration. I write this in the middle, and I leave this every possibility. So formally, it means the configuration such that xi to I plus 4 is equal to 0, 1, 0, 1. And this is 0, 1 to the z. You remember what is this?
Yeah.
What this is? This is the set of all sequences. So I'm
So
for
we
example,
have taken the part of the sequence which is that way.
yes, and the cylinder is a set of sequences which satisfy this. So in particular, if this is my set of configuration with this, then, for example, you can write that this. This is the disjoint union. Okay? So, every sequence, every configuration at cell 0, it must have either 0 or 1. So, this is you separate, you have two sets of configurations, two subsets, and they partition the whole set.
Yeah, kind of.
You understand? Either you have 0 in the middle, or you have 1. So that's two kinds of configuration. But then, this 0 can be partitioned into two sets. 0, 1 or 0, 0. Okay?
Yeah.
So with respect to cell number 1. So here you separate A to the Z into four sets.
Yeah.
Okay. But
Yeah.
you can do this many times.
Yeah. That's.
And all of these sets are closed and open, because by definition of the project topology they are open. And you see that they have a complement which is open also, because it's a union of finitely many open sets. So they are closed and open. So we are in a space where we have many sets which are closed and open. This is completely the opposite of a connected space. A connected space is a space where you don't have any set which is both closed and open, except the empty set and the full set.
Yeah.
But here, you have a base of the topology. You have near every point, you have smaller and smaller neighborhoods which are disconnected from the rest. And this is total disconnectedness. So if you, on the other direction, where you can see it, you take one configuration, and you take the middle from minus r plus 1, so from minus r to plus r, sorry. And you take the cylinder corresponding to this. So this is the set of configurations which are equal to this finite word between minus r and plus r. And this finite word is taken to be the center of the configuration x. This means the restriction to the set in the middle. So this is the ball. This is a ball. This is the set of configuration which agree with x in the middle, and it's a ball with respect to one of the metrics we introduced in the beginning.
well, I'm on the left now to understand where I can put this and how do I use it. Because, well, this one I can understand, yes, that's easy. Well, I'll be listening to all lectures.
So what is very important is to understand that this metric space, you take two configurations, which are infinite words, okay? And the metric space says that you consider that they are very close to one another if they have a very long common part. Okay? If the common part is very long in the middle, then we say that we consider they are very close to each other. If they are present in the middle, we say that they are very far from each other. Jest waпрос? Что понятно? Что понятно?
Да, все понятно. Хорошо говорите, пожалуйста.
Окей. Не достаточно делать курс исторический. So, if you read in the first or second chapter of the book by Kurka,
I haven't read this yet.
Maybe first or second chapter, he explains things differently than I do, so maybe it can help to understand.
If I'm not mistaken, I have it already open in my computer. Oh, I will read.
So I realized that we have only 4 weeks left, and so we have to hurry up. And on 6th of November, if I'm not mistaken, this is a Tuesday, we may do the exam, if you agree. Okay, so I'm sorry to have this organization which is different from others. Not really what I would have preferred. Okay, so maybe we can start because this is a video. So people who will be late can watch it. So as I said, I asked and they told me that they would put the videos each week. Each weekend they would put the videos of the week which was ending. Be very careful with this particular course because we have the situation where many people can't attend one of the two slots. So
they have put the sixth one.
Sorry?
The last one, I think they have put it already.
Yes.
I don't say so today.
So yes.
Now there are only three. First two and the last.
Ah.
The middle.
So
no recording.
we missed only one.
Yeah,
But
I haven't seen.
how many courses did we do?
I'm not sure.
Because we did maybe 3 weeks and twice a week. I think we did 5 courses, including the exercise session.
I have seen first, second, sixth, and seventh.
Oh, yeah.
And
Sunday.
So there are 7 of them?
yes.
Yeah, third one is
Yes, that's the one which didn't work.
okay.
Yes. But that's where the one where we said the important things that will be on the exam. Okay, so let's start. So,
Sorry, a question. Are there some questions for the exam to prepare? Do you do something like this?
yes. every exercise, for example, that I give, and because now I think I will continue to send them by email. It's good also for you written trace. And essentially, if you do all of the exercises, and it should be already not bad. But on the exercise sheet, maybe the next ones will not be always as full as the last one, and sometimes I record some definitions, but you don't expect all definitions to be on the slide sheet. You should know some definitions that were in the lectures. Okay, so definition. So, in topological dynamics, we say, I think we mentioned this definition earlier. Remember the important questions we asked in topological dynamics? There are not too many, so you can remember. In general, you have a dynamical system and you want to know tensor orbit,
Periodic point, stable point.
Stable.
Fixed point.
Yes, fixed point. It's a particular case of a periodic point. Stable means something. Sometimes it can mean even different things, but I didn't really mention this. And dense orbit, there's a particular case where all orbits are dense.
Yes.
You remember? And this is minimality. Yes. I will give equivalent statements. One equivalent statement. every orbit is n. Why is it called minimality? Because there is no subsystem, there is no strict subsystem. What is a subsystem? Yes. And we often require compactness. And so I would say non-empty. Okay. So another equivalent statement is generated. You know what it can mean to be generated. I take a point. What is the dynamic system generated by a point?
Orbit,
You take the orbit.
full orbit.
Yes. So that you want it to be there, to be defined on the whole set, and you want another thing on the set. Yes. So the dynamic system is the closure out to the orbit. It's generated by some x which is uniformly recurrent. What does it mean? So first, do you understand that if I write it's generated by some x,
Which is
you remember we already talked about this. If I don't write this means not minimality but transitivity because there is a dense orbit. Exactly. And now I require it to be uniformly recurrent. So by the way, it's generated by any possible x also, because this would be an equivalent statement also. And uniformly recurrent, what does it mean? It means that for every U open containing x, there exists a uniform bound such that for every t f t of x t plus n of x intersects u. So, you have an open set like this, and you must have orbits. Every orbit should go through this set. Otherwise, I could remove it and I get a smaller closed set which is invariant. If I have one orbit which never goes in U, I take its closure, it doesn't go in U, and it's a strict subsystem. Okay? So every orbit should go in U, but actually it should go infinitely often, because if it goes only a finite number of times, I take the point after the last time.
and we think that
Yes. And again, I have a strict subsystem. But even more than this, it should be
uniform.
Yes. The time that I spend outside should be bounded uniformly. Otherwise, if I have larger and larger parts of orbits which go outside, maybe like this. You understand what I do? I have orbits, they all go many times in U, but non-uniformly, with a gap which is not bounded uniformly. Then I can take these orbits outside, and by compactness, I will find a limit point, which is an orbit which is completely outside. And we generate a subsystem which doesn't contain U. So, it was not needed.
We consider only positive this time. Only not that.
Yeah.
It is not important.
We have to choose. I'm sorry, I'm very bad at choosing, but this is an action of M. This is either G or M. Okay?
And we taking all these parts where our orbit is outside our U, and among them we choose. How do we use compactness? Could you?
So, for example,
we have.
I take a point,
yes,
which is very long. If I am in Z, for example,
yes.
Let's say I am in Z. For a very long time before I was not in U, for a very long time after I'm not in U,
yes.
And this very long time, I make it grow, and I get a sequence of points.
Yes.
And by compactness, since U is open, the complement is closed.
Yes, and we have.
I have a limit point in the complement, which for an infinite time before was not in U, and for an infinite time after.
Invariant. Yes.
So, and this is. And this is 1 point, and if I take the orbit, it's an invariant set, and I said the orbit is never in U. And if I take the closure, since the orbit is in the complement of U, I take the closure, it stays in the complement of U because U is closed. The complement of U is closed. Okay. Now, maybe even better than this, so here I wrote there exists X such that for all U open blah blah blah, but actually I can even write for all U another equivalent statement for all U open non-empty. There exists n, an integer, such that for all x, so you see, I swapped some quantifiers. It's the same property, but before I had the x before, and I had a specific x. Here I say that for every u, I can find an m which is uniform for every point. And you can do this swapping because, well, essentially these x's here will be very close to one given orbit, like what we said because it's generated. So, but I don't do the full proof here because as I said, we need to kind of hurry to go faster. So, can anyone think about characterization of minimal subshifts in dimension 1? So, if you look at this, you have you can replace open set in the definitions by cylinders because they are a base of the topology. And of course, these are the shifts of the same configuration. But since there is a bounded L, actually instead of an X, you can take a language of a finite word of length n, and you say that you're in your cylinder U at some point in this cylinder. So if I summarize what I just said, you can write something like this: for all U in the language of X, there exists n, such that for all V in the language, you remember the language of X, it's the set of finite words which appear in one configuration, and the language of order n of X is the same thing but with length n. Okay? And this is U appears in V. So for every pattern which is valid for X, there exists a window size where I can see this pattern in every valid pattern of this size. Well, another characterization for all X and Y in X, they have the same language. So this is the set of the language of X. You understand what it means? It's the set of finite patterns which appear in X. So, if you have two configurations which don't have the same language, it means that there is, for example, a pattern which appears in X but not in Y. Okay? So, if you forbid it, you have a strict subsystem which contains Y, so it's non-empty. And it's a strict subsystem because it doesn't contain X. So, it's not minimal. Okay. Do you have a very simple example of minimal system, minimal subshift?
It contains 1 point.
Yes. Yes, so for example, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. This is a minimum subshift. Can you generalize this stupid example? Yes. So each periodic orbit is a finite subshift. And do you have other examples of, for example, minimal SFT? A minimal SFT, which is not. What can you say about a minimal SFT? In dimension 1. You remember what do you know about SFT? How can we represent them? As a graph. And a very basic remark on the graph is that there is always if there is one infinite path, if the subshift is not empty, then there is a cycle. So there is a periodic configuration.
And we should have only one cycle.
If it's minimal, there is nothing else. So these are the only minimal SFTs. Understood? So actually, that's why we didn't speak about this earlier, because minimality is not really relevant with respect to SFT. So for any other SFT, you can forbid one pattern. If you choose it conveniently, you can forbid one so that it doesn't get empty. But this property is more. I wanted to talk about this property because we are going to see another kind of way to build interesting subshifts, which is substitutive subshifts. So what is a substitution? Very often it's called sigma, but in my course, sigma denotes the shift. So I will call it tau. No, tau. Theta. Theta.
If I'm not mistaken, I remember another definition of minimal system when we, for every two open sets, the image. There exists such natural number n, such that for any bigger number, the corresponding image of, or pre-image of one open set always intersects another open set.
Aren't you talking about mixing?
Yes. It's not. Yeah. Sorry.
It's also. I mean, mixing is also something stronger than transitive. That's what you mix. That's why you mix. So both minimal systems and mixing systems are transitive, but they are two very different things. Actually, when you are mixing n minimal, it's very rare, it's very trivial. So in particular, in SFT, there are very interesting mixing substitute SFTs. All of those SFT which are represented by a graph which is strongly connected and which is primitive in the sense that the length of the cycles are prime in their set. But no SFT is minimal except trivial ones. Okay, so yes, a question now? Any questions? So substitution, what is it? To start with, so for now we will stay in one-sided sequences. Many things work with two-sided sequences, but every two sentences I should say maybe something a little different. There are some technical aspects. It's not the most interesting. It's more, yes, annoying than interesting. It can be interesting, but it's more annoying. So, if you have a map from the set of, you remember this notation? This is the set of finite words over alphabet A. What can you say about this set? It's a set, but also it's a little more than a set. There is some structure, there is some, it's a monoid, yes, it's a free monoid. And the operation is concatenation, and the neutral element is the empty word. And so what can I expect from a map theta? I can ask to be a monoid homomorphism. So, in particular, theta is completely determined by its map, its image over letters. Do you agree with this? If I know the image of every letter, then I know the image of every word. I just have to concatenate the images of every letter. Okay. So what will I do with this? Let's see an example. Theta of, do you prefer 0, 1 or AB as an alphabet?
0, 1.
Okay. So theta of 0 is 0, 1, and theta of 1 is 0. And now I want to look what happens on about theta 2. Theta 2 of 0 is 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0. And theta 3 of 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. What can you remark?
The next is just pushing.
It's a
The previous and the previous.
Yes, even better. So first, I'm just extending the word, but what you're saying is that theta n.
The Fibonacci.
It's theta n plus 1. Let me not be mistaken. I think it's this one, concatenated with theta n of 0. And this is why we call this substitution Fibonacci substitution. So you can prove this. It's not difficult by recurrence. So since we are looking at iterations of a map, most arguments will be by induction, by recurrence. If you want to prove things, this is not difficult. And so, yes, it's interesting. And what is the link with the subshift? I will define the subshift as, so maybe I can first define the language of the substitution. Is the set of patterns which appear in an image of a letter. Okay, you understand? I take bigger and bigger words like this. So you can see that they will grow because if you take 0, there will always be a 0, and at the next step it will add at least one letter. And you get bigger and bigger pattern. And the language of the substitution is the set of all, not only the images of the letters, but also the sub-patterns, so that we have a language which is stable by taking subwords. Okay? And now the subsheet, what is it? It's a set of configurations such that the language of the configuration is in LT type. So all patterns appearing in the configurations must appear in some pattern like this. So if you have bigger and bigger patterns, then this subsheet is an empty. Why? Because of some. So in general, when I ask,
there at least one symbol present in the image of a letter, so that every.
Sorry, I didn't hear the beginning.
No, I think that must be an empty language. There at least one symbol which is present in the image of every letter. So there must be at least one symbol which is present in the image of some letter.
Mm-hmm.
And hence we can at least have, sorry.
You're touching some relevant property, it's true. So one interesting thing that we can define is the graph of the substitution, or the matrix of the substitution. So basically representing the substitution, but you forget about the order of the letters in the image. That's why sometimes it's called abelionization, because here you agree that you have a monoid which is not abelian. If you concatenate in one order, it's not the same. But so it's very important here that it's 0, 1 and not 1, 0. If you forget this, then you have an operation on the number of ones and number of zeros, which is linear and not the same object, but it depends on this. So the matrix is the number of letter A that appear in the image of B. So here I put, so of course I will probably write the transpose of what I want to write. If you see the contrary in some book, the book is right, I think. Because so here, this is letter A. Okay, let's have the example here. 0, 1, which appear in image of theta of 0, theta of 1. So how many zeros in theta of 0? 1. How many ones in theta of 0? 1. How many zeros in theta of 1? 1. How many ones in theta of 1? 0. You remember this matrix? We already had it for the Fibonacci subshift. So, sorry, this is the Fibonacci subshift. We already had it for the Fibonacci SFT, which is yes. So before, in the SFT, it was the golden mean subshift. I think I called it like this. I didn't. I mean, someone called it like this, and I think I repeated it. The golden mean subshift is the set of paths, of infinite paths, and here we are not in. I mean, we are interested also in this graph, but these edges don't represent the operation when shifting. Following an edge in an SFT was like shifting the configuration, right? You're looking like you're reading the configuration, you're shifting. Reading from left to right is like shifting, and following the edges, it's the same. Here, when I follow, it's like applying the substitution. So, if I have, for example, let's have a word which is very big. Okay, so for example, this is theta of 0, this is theta of 1, this is theta of 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0. This was 1. Okay, and now I can do it again. This is 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. Okay, like this is the derivation of 0, which gives me a long word like this. And when you follow a path like this, you are going vertically. For example, I'm having 0, then I have the choice between going to 0, so this is 0 and this is 1. I am in 0, I have the choice between having 0 or 1. Okay? If I go to 1, I don't have the choice. 1 is 0. Okay? Poof, and back. Maybe I go to 0, 0, and after a while I go to 1, but then so it's not about the shifts, but this is the graph of the application of the substitution. Is it clear what the graph represents? So, we were wondering when when the subshift is non-empty. So you understand that here I derive 0 and I get longer and longer words. Is it enough for the subshift to be non-empty? If I get longer and longer words. There is one argument which is important in this kind of questions. When you want to go from finite objects to infinite objects.
Can you take a limit?
Why can you take a limit? Why is there a limit? Yes, it's compact. It is compact because I'm looking at the set of infinite. Maybe
because
you can see that
it's open cover of the set of full shift. So take like cylinders which are bigger and bigger.
yes. So you can see a way of seeing this is to maybe you can extend the product topology on the set of finite and infinite words. A way of seeing that a very easy way of seeing that it works very well is to say that you have an additional letter, which means, like short letter, which means nothing, and which, when you have a finite word, you represent it as an infinite word with cofinitely many sharps, and this set of finite words, if they grow, then there is a limit where there is no sharp. I don't detail this, but I think you have a good intuition. Compactness gives that x theta is non-empty if and only if L theta is infinite. So one implication is compactness, and the other one is even easier. You understand that if the language is finite, it means that for a language to be finite, on the finite alphabet, it's the same as saying that there is a bounded length. You agree? So if there is a bounded length in the patterns appearing in powers of image, it means there is a bounded length in the images of the letters. But then, of course, I can find words for every configuration. I can find patterns which are longer than this, and they will not be here. So x theta will be empty. Is it correct? Sorry. So you must have one letter whose image goes to infinity. So technically, it's not, the equivalence is not completely obvious. What is obvious is that there is arbitrarily large words. So since the alphabet is finite, it's not so hard to see that there is one letter where all images are arbitrarily long. But if they are arbitrarily long and they don't converge to infinity, they don't go to infinity, there is a problem. I don't do the proof here, but if you go back,
But you can't reduce length of words.
sorry?
If it's impossible to reduce the length of the word in the definition, you can't take like a word
Okay.
length, get a short word.
I didn't, so in this example, no, but in general, I didn't assume that you cannot erase a letter.
So you can map to empty word.
But, yes, very often people do assume this. It's simpler. You understood the question? So you could have, in theory, theta of A is equal to the empty word. Then you can remove these A's, these such letters. Well, okay, to be more, you can. There is a way to deal with this. But what I want you to see is how can I see from the graph that I have this property? So for example, if I had a graph like this, or maybe like this. This is something like 0 gives 0 and 1 gives 1. At least I must have the image of one letter to give me at least two letters. So I must have one vertex with two outgoing arrows. If I have one vertex, if I have one vertex with two outgoing arrows, like this, for example, like this, do you think this will have this property also? So this is 0, for example, 0 gives 1, 1, and 1 gives 1. No, because this vertex with two outgoing arrows, I will visit it only a finite number of times. So you must have one vertex which is visited possibly infinitely many times and with two outgoing arrows. And this means that
cycle, but with two outgoing.
yes. So it means that either one.
Two cycles, like with one common vertex.
So there is a strongly connected component. I think what you say is an example of this strongly connected component. Which is not a cycle. So if you have a strongly connected component which is not a cycle, then it's okay. Because a strongly connected component which is not a cycle, it means at some point I have two outgoing arrows which go back. Maybe not like this, but maybe like this. Okay? And this is okay. Then you can follow many paths by staying in the same connected component. But it's not the only case. It's not an equivalence as I wrote it like this, because you may have, for example, a cycle and a cycle like this, then this is okay. 0 gives 0, 1, and 1 gives 1. It's not the most interesting substitutions, but they still have a non-empty subshift. Or is not terminal. You remember what it means, a terminal strongly connected component? It means one without outgoing arrows from the component. So this is a strongly connected component. This is a strongly connected component, and there are some arrows possibly between strongly connected components, and the strongly connected components which don't have any outgoing arrows, they are called terminal strongly connected components. Okay, it's clear? So, by convention, here there is only one. It depends on the references, but in my definition, here there is only one strongly connected component. Okay? In this example, and the vertex is in no strongly connected component because there is no non-trivial path to itself. So here, this graph does not satisfy this. But these two graphs satisfy this. Yes, you are close.
What about with a graph like this?
So, yes. So then this is a terminal connected component because there is no outgoing arrow to another. You're right, maybe it was not very clear what you're saying.
This is not connected component.
No, this is not a connected component.
Because
So this is terminal. Because you cannot go out of it to another strongly connected component. Okay. And when is my system minimal? So, for a system to be minimal, I need to have every valid word to be present in some window of a bounded length. Maybe we can start by taking as a word, take just one letter. I want subshift where if I take 0 or if I take 1, they are present in all configurations with bounded gaps. And we will okay. So first remark, if I have a graph like this, you see that this is a subset of vertices. Vertices are letters. I didn't. You understood from the matrix that the set of vertices is the letters and the edges. There is an edge. Maybe I can write it like this. there is an edge each time I see one letter in an image. So maybe AI, where A is the A, and I is between 0 and the length of theta of A. And this is an abstract edge, and the starting vertex of this edge is A, and the target vertex is theta of A, index I. Okay, you understand? I think you have understood before. That's before now. Okay. We can add the label I. Sometimes it can be useful, but not from now until for what we said. So this is a sub-alphabet that is represented in this strongly connected component. And if I take the subgraph of all arrows starting from this, they stay in the same set because it's terminal strongly connected component. So theta admits a restriction to this subalphabet, more precisely to the monoid generated by this subalphabet. So here you have a substitution over a smaller alphabet, which is defined. If I take this graph, I take all the corresponding images. You have a subalphabet which is stabilized by theta. So if you have this, then it's not. I mean, this is a subsystem. The corresponding subshift will be a subsystem. Not here, because here the corresponding subshift is empty. But if you have a non-trivial, maybe this one. Okay, we have this graph. And here I have a connected component which is not a cycle, so the restriction of the substitution to the subalphabet corresponding to the strongly connected component admits a non-empty subshift, which is a subsystem of the whole thing. I don't know if it's a strict subsystem. It depends. We need more properties to be sure. Sometimes it's not, because, for example, if I have 0 gives 0, 0 gives 1 0, and 1 gives 1. What will be the subshift, the associated subshift? You apply 0 many times, you apply this rule many times, you get 1 0, 1 1 0, 1 1 1 0. And then in the end, you have only one configuration with only ones. So you see that it's not so obvious. So you cannot restrict. You cannot get only this strongly connected component because it doesn't generate the subshift. So it's not very easy what to do with a strongly connected component. It's not as clear as in the SFT case, for the reason that we forgot about these labels, the I, but it makes a big difference. It's very important to remember the order of the things. So you lose a lot of information by going to the graph. It helps to do some things. So for example, if we restrict to strongly connected graph, and not a cycle. Because if it's strongly connected but a cycle, then the subshift is empty. If it's strongly connected and not a cycle, then you know that there is equivalency yes, I think we didn't do this last time. Okay. No. We need. I wanted to do the proof that it doesn't work if it's not primitive, but we don't have a lot of time, so let's assume this is primitive. So what does it mean? It means that m to the k, there is this k for all ij m to the k ij is not 0. You remember this. In terms of graph, it means something about the vertex common divisor of the cycle length. So how can I interpret this in terms of my substitution? What is m to the k, by the way? It's rather clear. It's a matrix associated to substitution theta to the k. It's completely defined to have take a power of this. It's a monoid endomorphism even, which means it goes to itself, so I can iterate it. So this is the matrix of theta to the k, and what does it mean that all entries are non-zero? By definition?
You can go from anywhere to anywhere?
Yes. From any letter. So for any two letters, one appears in theta of k, theta to the k of the others. Okay? And this is interesting for minimality. You understand why? Because if I take n, the maximum length of the theta to the k of B, or B in A, then for all x in the subshift and for all n, for all I, it's not important because I took for all x, so I can take all the shifts. Then x always admits some kind of derivation by the substitution. It must appear in the iteration of an image, so all patterns must be included in a something which is a concatenation of images of patterns. So if I write X like this, I take any finite pattern, it must be like a sequence of like phi of A1, phi of A2, phi of A3, etc. Sorry, theta. And since we said that A appears in all theta of, so this is true also for theta k. I didn't say it exercise. X theta is equal to X theta k. It's really by definition. It's completely by definition. By definition. So this is also true. You have a decomposition of X by every theta k, and it means for every A, you have an A, at least in all of these, in each of these windows. Is the argument clear? Even if my drawing is not very formal. So, it's not minimality yet, because we want this for every pattern. But we have it for every pattern of length 1. And this is where the structure of substitutive subshift is very important, because when you have something for patterns of length 1, you can derive a property for longer patterns thanks to the substitution. So if U is in the language of the substitutive subshift, what does it mean? It means that U appears in some image of some letter. And so when you take the derivation of any word X, you know that at level M of this derivation, you also have an infinite word which is supposed to be in the subshift. You can prove this as rather easily also at the same time as proving this compactness by compactness. If I take an infinite word here, whose all patterns are in the language of the substitution, then it means that there is a pre-image by the substitution like this, and this pre-image I can extend it infinitely to the right. It's not very difficult to see that this is extendable to A to the capital N, etc. So you have pre-images of every height, and all of these pre-images, since they also have pre-images of every height, they must all be in the subshift, in substitutive subshift. So if I have such a property, and I know that at level M, I have a configuration of the subshift, and I have letter A, which has this property, which appears in bounded windows. Then I multiply the size of the window by the maximal growth of the patterns in n steps, and I get the same property for u. So if so n is this one, times the maximum, so give me a of the theta m of v. You understand more or less the idea? So if you prove something, if you prove that letters are very well uniformly recur, they occur uniformly with bounded gaps, then when you apply the substitution, you transmit this property to all the finite patterns which appear in their images. And I could do this by writing every line, but I'm sorry, but I really, since you want to do exercise session on Wednesday, I realize I don't have so many sessions, but of course this is written very carefully in many references that I can give you. Yeah. So,
So we reformulate the minimality property for our system. What is the conclusion? If we take this and
theta is minimal because I took any u.
Yes.
Any u which was in the language of x theta, and it appears in every word, in every configuration of x theta with bounded gaps. And I assumed primitivity.
For primitive.
And if it's not primitive, if it's strongly connected and not primitive, it's not true, but I don't do it now. If it's not strongly connected, we saw some stupid counterexample, but most people in the literature, they just avoid this. So essentially what you can remember is that primitivity is exactly the property that we need for minimality.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
What's the topology of our space configuration?
Which
space? The topology.
So in x theta is just a subset of a to the n. So it's a product topology like before.
But suppose we have to find words. When these words are close to each other, we have
finite words?
Yes.
So you can say that a finite word,
if they have the same beginning,
yes,
similar beginning.
You can see them. You can see every finite word as infinite word, and you complete the end with a fresh symbol.
Fresh symbol.
And then you have a topology on this space, which is the topology we saw before, product topology on infinite configurations. But actually, it works quite well on finite words also, and then you can speak about finite words, sequences of finite words converging to an infinite word. For example, here you see that this sequence, since 0 gives 0, 0 gives something which begins with 0, by induction you can see that the sequence theta to the n of this will be prefixed of one another. This is a general statement. Here we wrote even better, but just when you have one letter whose image starts with itself, then you have a sequence of the iterates give you a sequence which is a prefix to the next one. And then you can say that this sequence of finite words converges to an infinite word. It's very intuitive. Everyone understands even without formalizing the idea, but with everything we did before an infinite configuration, you can formalize it also very easily.
And you said the word adenylation.
Yes, because we transform this whole endomorphism of a monoid, which is not abelian,
Yes.
not commutative, into a linear map over because if you add the
Yes,
if you quotient this monoid by commutativity, it means every word is only it becomes the number of zeros and the number of ones.
So we lose the order of...
If you lose the order, you just have a number of zero and a number of ones. And this gives you a vector.
I understand now.
And this theta gives you a linear map on the set of such vectors, which are called parallel vectors. It's clear this?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe two more things on Fibonacci. So first of all, what will be the entropy of such a thing? It's not so obvious, but actually it's zero because it's very slowly, the number of patterns grows very slowly. It grows actually as slow as possible if you want to avoid periodic configurations. So there is a theorem by Morse and Hedlund which says that if you take a subshift x, if the complexity of x, the symbolic complexity, the number of finite patterns of length n, is less than n for some n, then x contains x is finite. So it has only a finite number of ultimately periodic orbits if we are in capital N. Or periodic orbits if we are in Z. Okay? And if so, it's not only that for all n is less than n. So this is 1n, such that it's less than n, the complexity. Remember that the expected number of patterns is around exponential. When you have positive entropy, it means you have 2 to the n, or something to the n.
It is not only for substitution subshift, but for this theorem.
Sorry, no, for every subshift. Yes, any subshift. And if for all n the complexity is minimal in terms of aperiodicity, then we say maybe I add nx is not no, because we okay. So here again let's assume this, because it makes some statements simpler. Then we say that x is Sturmian. So we already saw this in the first course as the codings of rotations. And it's equivalent to being given a real number and coding when you are, well, this little construction that we did in the first course. And the Fibonacci subshift is Sturmian. We can prove that the complexity is n plus 1 for every n. This kind of proof is by induction. So complexity as n plus 1 means that you have, at each n, you have one additional word in some sense. So you have n words of length n, and you have just one more of length n plus 1. So it means you have these n words of length n. Most of them, they determine uniquely the next letter, but one of them has two possible extensions. You see why it means this?
Yeah.
If you look at the prefix map from the language of length n plus 1 to the language of length n, you have a natural prefix map, and you have n plus 1 words which are mapped onto a set of n words, which means that they all have distinct images except 2 which have the same image. I said the same thing in the opposite point of view. So by counting the number of patterns which can be extended in two ways, this is how we generally compute complexity functions. These are called special words. Right special words. We can talk about left special, also right special. So if you count the number of right special words, you have exactly, if you have a binary alphabet, you have exactly the number of words, the number of additional words you have at each end. So you have the difference between complexity for length n plus 1 and for length n. And in substitutive subshifts like this, it's not very hard to compute this. You just have to look at, for example, you see that for length 2, you never have pattern 1, 1. You cannot have pattern 1, 1 because it doesn't, because every image of every letter starts with a 0. So at least every 2 letters you must have a 0. So you don't have pattern 1, 1. And 0, 1 can be preceded by either a 0 or a 1. But 0, 0 must be preceded by a 1, and 1 0 must be preceded by a 0. And by induction, by applying successive substitution, one can prove that, one can find that there is exactly one special factor of each length. And one special factor of each length is due that the complexity goes up by 1. Yes. And and you can also do this if you, instead of applying theta to the n many times, you can generalize this by changing the substitution that you apply at each step. So, imagine you have a sequence theta index n, and each, in the definition of the substitutive, in the substitution, so you have a sequence of substitution, and you can define L theta also. And instead of taking a power n of one substitution, I take theta n, theta 0 of A. The composition, you understand? So if my sequence is only 1, 1, 1, 6, always the same substitution, I get the same this. But here I allow, it's really like when doing my derivation, I apply one substitution here, then in the next step I could have another one. And x index theta to the n is defined the same way as here, and it's called an S-adic subshift. And if I have, let's say, theta chapeau, theta hat of this 0, gives 1, and 1 gives 1, 0. Every sequence, so I have S equals theta chapeau. Theta is this one, okay? The Fibonacci. I take the set of these two substitutions, and I take any sequence between. Each time I choose, I take the subshift which is defined by having a derivation where at each step I choose between this substitution or this one. Sorry, no. I fix the sequence. It's not that each time I choose. I fix the sequence of substitution, and I look at the subshift depending on this sequence where each time I derive with respect to the corresponding subshift. Then, this computation of the special factors and of the complexity is still true, and this is also a Sturmian subshift. And actually, it's an equivalence. Every Sturmian can be expressed as a Nesadic subshift from either theta chapeau or sorry, I will get it wrong again. Symmetrically defined substitution. I think so. I wonder if I didn't make a mistake, because here
How we define theta hat in general case?
no, it's not in general. No, sorry, it's not in general case. It's very specific here.
For our definition.
Yes, it's for the definition of Sturmian. You have two specific substitutions. I shouldn't call maybe theta prime, maybe. Sorry, maybe, I agree it makes. It's time. Okay. So. Yes, every acidic sequence can be every Sturmian subshift can be defined as an acidic with one between two sets of two substitutions, and these substitutions correspond also can be interpreted also geometrically in terms of the angle of rotation. When you apply a substitution to a Sturmian subshift, then you change the angle. Maybe here, when I derive from a substitution, I don't get exactly the same subshift here. I get a subshift which is Sturmian, but with another angle of substitution, of rotation. And it corresponds to a map we talked about in the first course, but I don't have much time to refer to now. When I was saying that we could interpret Sturmian as coding of irrational lines here. And there were two ways of coding this. One, when you were writing horizontal or vertical, and one where you were writing one letter per column, and the difference between the two is the same as applying the substitution, one of these two substitutions also. So there are many links in every way, and it also corresponds to doing one step of algorithm of continuous fraction. If you take the angle theta, because Sturmian are in one-to-one, Sturmian subshifts are in one-to-one correspondence with irrational angles, and there are many number of theoretical things in terms of Diophantine equations and things like that, which can be interpreted dynamically in the Sturmian system. And in particular, when you want to find an algorithm to find a continuous fraction of theta, then you do this exactly this kind of thing of applying the substitutions theta and theta prime, which modify this line. And maybe just one last word to that we didn't have time to prove, but this matrix is also, you can do many other things on the graph and on the matrix. In particular, the Perron-Frobenius theorem still holds, and you can prove that the Perron-Frobenius dominating value corresponds to the exponential growth of the length of the words by theta. When you have a primitive, it doesn't depend on the first letter when you have a primitive substitution. And the eigenvectors, the corresponding eigenvectors correspond to the frequency of each letter in every word of the subshift at the end. You have a frequency of 0 and a frequency of 1 which are well defined, which means you take the number of 1 of each prefix and divide by the length, and you take the limit, and this always exists, which is not obvious at all, but in substitutive subshifts which come from primitive substitutions, this is a strong result that this always exists. And this is linked also to invariant measures of the system, but I don't have time to speak about this. Any question? Sorry, it was quite dense, but in exercise sessions maybe we have more time to fully understand all the concepts and to ask any questions.